interview of the series organized by Berkeley Global Society on Arbitration. Our special guest is Maria Beatrice Deli, among other things, Professor of International Law, International Arbitrator, as well as Secretary General of ICC Italia. Maria Beatrice professional activity covers national as well as international arbitration matters, so we decided to have a one-on-two with, and I have invited my friend and co-chair, Flavio Peter, to co-moderate the session. Good afternoon, Maria Beatrice. Good afternoon, Flavio.
Good afternoon, Matteo.
Good afternoon, Matteo.
So let's start from the beginning. Maria Beatrice was born in an industrial city in the center of Italy named Terni, known for steel production and located in the Umbria region that is considered the green heart of Italy, not only for the picturesque hills, the famous cuisine of Chef Visani, but mainly for cultural traditions. What remains of the Umbrian spirit in your approach to life, Maria Beatrice?
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. Thank you for this question, Matteo. It's very, my origins are truly important to me. And I would say, just to answer your question, I would say that definitely simplicity, values, and tradition, are at the back of my career. And I would say that all the memories I built in my first years in Umbria, in the steel city, always are, and I think will always be the starting point of any decision, to any curve, to any pathway I can take for my career.
Thank you very much for sharing this. Then Maria graduated from Sapienza, a renowned public university in Rome. I guess the audience could be curious to know how was life as a student in Sapienza during the 80s.
It was very different from now, very, very different from now. As you mentioned, I moved from the Sapienza University, which is, I think, some 700 years old. So, and actually, I think it's the biggest ateneum in Europe. So impressive, very, very big one. And actually, I started with the Faculty of Political Science. And that was, what I can tell you about those very old times was maybe a feeling more than that. I would like to share with you the feeling of those years. When I arrived at the Faculty of Political Science, I had a very strong impact with the political commitment of the community of students of that time. In that period and in that faculty. And, it was really in the air. So politics was really in the air. And what I can tell you, just to give you a hint of what it was being a student in those years, I was a first-year student when Professor Bachelet, he was a professor of administrative law, was killed by the Red Brigades on the same stairs I used to climb every day. So that was so shocking for me that it certainly, in a way or the other, was a dramatic event that certainly inspired my career in a way, changing my direction towards basic values and principles of human rights and fundamental freedom. So that was very, very important, I guess.
Thank you. I think that this is very touching also after 30 years, something terrible. But could you tell us some anecdotes about your life as a student?
Well, actually, as a student, I was surprised and I was interested in all the different topics that were, the different subjects at the Faculty of Political Science. So at first, what I can say that I was a bit confused maybe at the very beginning, because I wanted to start being a diplomat. So I said, okay, I will follow the international pathway, and in the end, I will try to be a diplomat and so travel all over the world. But then political science is such an impressive faculty where so many topics are taught that after a while, I've been moving from one topic to the other, and maybe in the end, I found the right one, which was international law.
I understand. I understand. The 80s were a tragic decade, but also, in my opinion, a vibrant one.
Yeah.
So let's talk about culture, but music. What was your favorite music at the time? And maybe have your tastes changed or not?
Well, they didn't change. They didn't change so much. But of course, if I think of those periods, I cannot, that my first thought is for Madonna. So Madonna she was really, abolishing boundaries and, being such a strong personality and, in a sort of empowering attitude. She was very inspirational. And of course, all the classic rock music and or even the Italian music. But I think if I have to think of a personality, then, well, maybe Madonna is the one.
So you have a revolutionary background with Madonna. But did you play an instrument or?
Yes, I used to play piano, but I used to play classic piano. And then when I tried, I had a sort of, my soul was a bit revolutionary when I was younger, when I was a little girl. And I tried to convince my teacher to let me play something more modern. He said, no way, you have to study the classic one. So I stopped. I said, okay, this is no more for me. And I regret that decision. I must say that I do regret that decision. So probably this is something I will do when I will retire.
I understand. Thank you. Maria Beatrice, I believe that playing an instrument is an incredible gift. You must respect rules, practice a lot, but actually at a certain point you can follow your inspiration and create something new. If you are lucky, something beautiful. So I reckon that there are similarities between music and law, don't you think?
This is true. I think there is a similarity. As you said, they both will follow written rules. There's a methodology in both in music and in law. But then you have to be passionate. So probably I would say that, well, international law is a passion. So it takes you and really brings you on a different planet. So that's the point where the two sectors maybe will meet. Yeah, I would say that passion, it's something which color, the both law and music. Of course.
Thank you. So if we talk of passion, when did your passion for international law begin?
Well, as I said, maybe exactly from the beginning, and that's why I wanted to be a diplomat. But then I took the exam of private international law with Professor Giardina, who was my professor since then. And I thought that there was, that point of connection between law and the life of human beings that was so interesting, you know, in a perspective of in the 80s, the common market, what that then later will become the EU, was growing, was becoming reality. So I thought it was extremely interesting and important. So it started there, maybe probably at my 3rd year.
I understand.
And afterwards, you you followed that road of international law, and you were also visiting scholar, and you visited obviously a lot of different important institutions and universities, be it die Institut für Ausländisches und Internationales Privat- und Wirtschaftsrecht in Heidelberg. You were also at the Institut Suisse de Droit Comparé in Lausanne, and of course at Yale Law School. If we look at that, in your view, how important is it for an international law practitioner to attend such programs abroad?
It's fundamental. It's really fundamental. Maybe we didn't have so many programs at that time, actually. So the only thing I could do was try to, you know, connect to have programs which were, let's say, tailor-made. So there was not a big offer of programs. And when I started my first period abroad, as a visiting scholar, was in Heidelberg with Professor James, and you know, he was at the center of private international law academia. So it was extremely important. It was so important for my career because it really opened up my perspective, and really had effect to enlarge my views and, you know, put me in contact with other scholars, with other colleagues, and so really become truly international in the attitude, in a personal attitude.
Would you say that this is still the same, or could we make an argument that this has maybe today slightly changed, because we see that, you know, the interchange between be it students, but also generally the interchange is faster, and we have an outreach internationally that we did not have before. We have electronic means to have a certain exchange on an international level, and maybe we even have a global or international approach to certain matters, as we can experience it in international arbitration. Is it still the same, would you say? You know, if you are active in international arbitration, you gotta go abroad, you gotta speak 4 languages, and I don't know what.
I think it would be better. It would be much better to do that instead of, you know, staying at home and, you know, consume from home. I would rather say go, because it is so important. It's completely different. Even if you can, of course, we can attend conferences on the other side of the world, but I mean, it is not the same. When you go, when you meet, you create your own network. And this is something I've done in my career, in my education. It was really great to, you know, to meet people, and with many of them, I'm still connected. So we're still friends after so many years. Mm-hmm. So it's important, I think. It's part of your education. It has to be part of the education.
Okay, and if we only look at, let's think of it as from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, our feeling, or my feeling, would be that sometimes, or in some aspects, the different jurisdictions become a little bit blurred. You know, like when we were at university, it was classic civil law versus common law, and those are the differences. Is that still the same, or would you also agree that, you know, they have approached each other and the classical distinctions are not the same anymore?
Well, maybe you are correct. Maybe this is correct. differences are, you know, a little bit blurred. And this might be true, but still, I mean, I do also believe in differences. So I think we should also keep systems different. And this is
Why?
Pardon?
Why? Yeah, and I think you were just gonna.
Because I think that enrichment comes from differences. And I mean, when our world would be too globalized, I think all the differences will disappear. I think that would be a negative result, I'd say. So I do believe in differences, and I think it's part of our personal growth, personal improvement to consider differences and you know, and accept them. So I wouldn't be in favor of a one word jurisdiction.
Yes, I think I mean, that's just a side remark, but this statement is incredibly apt if we think of differences as diversity. You know, enrichment comes from diversity, and it's part of our personal growth. Have you put it? I think you may already be, or you certainly have become now, the perfect ambassador for diversity. I think it's a great statement to make. Thank you for that. If we stay with, you know, like with personal growth, if we stay on that, would you say that it makes also sense to visit non-law courses like basics of psychology or ethics, you know, to help students become better professionals, or, you know, maybe better persons if they need it?
Well, I think that when I was a student, it was not even conceivable to open up to other topics like psychology. But then today, you can see that these topics, the subjects are so important, even for international arbitration, you know, in order to cope with expert witnesses, and also with counsel, and also with colleagues sometimes. So I would be in favor of enlarging this sort of expertise also to different topics. Yes, I would be in favor.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. I think we might get to that again at next question afterwards, but for now I pass back to Matteo, who will ask you some questions on big law firms.
Yes, the next chapter is Maria Beatrice Deli and the big law firms. Maria Beatrice Deli spent 15 years in the international department of Chiomenti, also working with Professor Giardina. So we would be grateful if you could reveal your secret for managing the relationships in such a very complex and competitive environment.
No secret. No secret at all. No secret at all. It was very hard. It was hard also because at that time, when I started working with this big law firm, I was starting my academic career. So I also had to work at the university, to devote a certain number of hours to my research, to my studies. But then at the same time, I had to stay in the office and work with other colleagues. And apart from this, I also, I cannot deny, I'm also a woman. So it was not 15, 20 years ago, it was not as simple as it seems to be today. It is not simple today. It is maybe a little bit easier, or we are all aware of gender diversity or different approach, but 20 years ago it was not. So I think it was, sometimes I felt, I had impression that my studies were considered a distraction from my everyday duties. So in addition to that, I'm not a competitive person. So I really want to do my job and be good in that. But I was not pushing so much. So at the end, what can I say? It was not easy. And maybe what I can confess here is that probably my feeling is that I've not did my best there. I could have done more maybe, or in a different way. And then leaving the firm forced me to stand on my feet, to be braver and build up myself. So in a way, I made a change after 15 years, and it was good. It was the right time, and it was the right moment for me to change and to start something different. So what I would say, never be afraid of changes. Even if you're in a very comfortable position in a big law firm, when you have all your activities clear.
I see. You made it very clear. So maybe I understand that you would recommend to work at the law firm and study at the same time, or working in the academia at the same time, because at the end of the day, you succeed.
Yes, it was difficult, and I spent many Saturdays and Sundays working and studying. But I think at the end, that was the right way to approach my work. And I would say that it is important also nowadays for younger generation. It's also important to start working in a law firm, approaching a law firm even before graduation. That could be also a good opportunity to put in practice what you have been studying until that moment. So I think it is possible. It is something which helps you to understand, to also to deal with different things at the same time, which is something which will help you when you become older and with more responsibilities in a law firm. So I think it's important because it creates a good basis for your legal education.
Thank you. I agree with you. I also think that students should start working at the last year in a law firm, and sharing also their experience, the knowledge of technology that could help also the professionals, the older professionals, I think. And let's back to Professor Giardina. The audience could be curious to know how is your the relationship with Professor Giardina. You said that he was your professor of private international law. What do you think when you met him for the first time?
Well, actually, I met him at the exam. Because I couldn't, there was a strange problem, so I couldn't really attend his lessons, but he didn't know that, and he doesn't know yet. But I haven't been, among the attendees of his classes. And so I went for the exam, private international law. And I remember clearly that we've been talking about international private law conventions and different topics. And while I was there, I decided he was the one I wanted to follow for my career. And so I asked him to be my thesis supervisor in that very moment. And he said, yes, why not? You are going to be my first student for the thesis here. He was new at the Sapienza. And so since then, he was my supervisor. And then after my thesis, he just asked me to join him in a law firm. And from that moment on, for many years.
I understand. And what did you learn as a person and as a professional in your long collaboration with him?
Well, I must say that he really was a teacher of life, and of life, and also practice, legal practice, even outside the classroom. And I owe him a lot. He was a very peculiar professor. He was, he really wanted to involve you in each and every case he was dealing with, and was always very respectful and very, close in a positive way. So this is something I try to reshape in my relationship with my younger assistants. So I think it's a way of conceiving this particular professional relationship that I thought was very important and very convincing for me.
I understand. Thank you very much for sharing this. And talking about Italian academia, do you think that it has changed in comparison with the 80s and the 90s?
Well, I think it has changed a lot. It has changed a lot also because, there is less distance between professor and younger assistants. And I think the relationship, if this is what you meant, is built on a more even consideration. While when I was young, it was a pyramid. It was a pyramid, and the system was way more steep. The academia was very close. 25 years ago was very close. And while nowadays it's different, because you can see that even from, the major university also include courses on which are aimed at offering a practical view of some legal issues, and this is something very important. So while at the beginning, when I was a student, it was certainly very far. You had theory, and that was it. And then you had to work and maybe put in practice what you have learned at university, but it was a very wide distance, I would say. While nowadays it seems to me that things are very, very different.
I understand. Thank you for sharing your point of view. Now we want to ask you something about, we are living a drama, COVID-19, that forced a revolution in the economy, in everyday life, but also inside the big law firm. So do you believe that COVID-19 changed the strategies of big law firms or not?
In terms of marketing, you mean, or in terms of approaching the work? What do you mean?
Yes, I mean in terms of approaching the problem, the building up the team to work on a case. Maybe many colleagues are on smart working.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure. Well, in a way, what I could say is that COVID-19 had the effect of bringing us to the essential. So it was a very, very strong effect. And of course, also smart working demonstrated to be very useful in some cases. And I was talking with a colleague the other day, and he said that there is a research, there's a study which demonstrates that people working from home could better concentrate on their job. So they had more positive results than expected. So instead of thinking that being smart working from home, you could be distracted by, I don't know, children or other things, it seems that the results are very, very positive. So I think there is also, smart working also allows people to have more time for other things. And so this could be also good for people to help them to stress relief of a little bit. And especially in these complex times, it could really help. So I would say that I'm in favor of this smart working, but of course, as long as it is kept with some flexibility and moderation, and of course it depends on the situation, because we all need to maybe also to have a moment of confrontation, to have a chance of discussing with other colleagues in person rather than through a video, which is extremely helpful, as we can see today. But it could also be maybe it cannot be the only way. So sometimes we do need to meet and to share something in person.
Thank you. I agree. I think that to find a compromise in the future maybe could be a solution. Let's see what will happen. But you talk about the problem of women, no? So once I want to recount you that once speaking with an Arab colleague, he told me that gender equality is much more of an issue in Italy than in the Middle East. So I don't know, but as a woman, do you believe that big law firms could and should do more to improve gender equality?
Okay, well, on your first comment, I agree with your colleague. I think it's a big issue in Italy, and I'm used to recall from time to time, I often recall the expression of surprise of a well-known Italian professor who asked me, but are you really saying that there are women in arbitration? And I said, yes, they are. But then, of course, I stopped and I say, okay, no way of, doing anything with this sort of attitude. Yes, I think big law firms could do a lot, are already doing a lot, are changing a lot. And it's clear that, for instance, the pledge, you might know that the initiative called the Pledge, in order to increase promoting the appointment of women arbitrator on a level of on an equal opportunity level. It's an initiative which was taken by a big law firm. So I think they are doing a lot. Myself, I'm in the steering committee of the Pledge as an Italian group, and we are trying to mostly we're trying to share awareness of the problem. And then there are many other issues which are linked to the role of women in the industry and in the economy, in the companies. But I mean, it's an issue of awareness. And I think that what the big law firms are doing are maybe the first steps toward at least a real gender diversity. And maybe, of course, we can also have to accept that there are jurisdictions, countries which are not yet aligned. But, there was a There was an old song by Bob Dylan who became 80 yesterday, I guess. And the title was The Times They Are Changing. So it is something that I always reminds me of that song. Times are changing. Yes, I think so, especially for the younger generation.
I hope you do not mind, Matteo, if I just quickly ask one question here.
Of course.
What we see in, well, probably Switzerland, I can say generally, and what we notice from our firm is that that there's pledge and other measures that are taken in order to sort of promote women already active in the field, but they do not get promoted. But what we also encountered is actually a difficulty to retain the talents, because at a certain phase, at a certain age, there's just dropouts. Obviously, I mean, family is one big issue, but there's other aspects to that. It's too simple to say, they have a family now and so they stop. I mean, that cannot be the answer. What is your view on that?
Well, I think it is, what we are trying to do with the pledge is trying to, keep the doors open for young colleagues. And I know that it is difficult, because especially when you want to leave your family, maybe have children, it might be difficult, but you can manage. There are ways for managing this. So I think it's, as I said, it's an issue of awareness. Just keep the mind open to that. And I'm not in favor of, counting numbers or be too careful about, how many women speakers, how many men speakers in a conference. I think this is not what I feel. I don't think that it's really meaningful. What's important in my view is to keep your mind open, try to involve women, be aware also of all the difficulties that some women may encounter in managing their private life together with the job. And smart working could help a lot in this case. So I think it could be really helpful. And it happened to me this year, or past year, that many male colleagues said, well, I realized that I could really work from home. So I think this is something I up to this point, I used to hear only from my female colleagues. And I thought, well, you're going home, so maybe you cannot work from home. But now that I'm experiencing that, I realize that this is possible. It's possible to work from home and be concentrated on your work and have the same positive results, good results in your work. So it is something important. I mean, it means that things are changing.
Thank you. So I see smart working, gender equality, even in Italy. So how do you see the Italian legal market in 10 years?
This is a very difficult question. I think I do not have an answer for this. It's my idea, my impression is that the Italian legal market is changing, it's transforming, and possibly this is an effect of, of globalization, of international relationship. And what I feel is that the Italian lawyers are confronted with other jurisdictions now, also due to the crisis and due to the necessity for our companies to export. So also the counsel, also lawyers have to face different jurisdictions, have to face problems which are international. And so probably now they will get used to new values, different jurisdiction, and also they do feel the need of acquiring expertise, greater expertise, specialization in certain fields. And also there is a new feeling, or acceptance of certain values, for instance, inclusivity, as we said, but also transparency, also respect of some fundamental rights, and which are now shared by the legal community in all jurisdictions and also in Italy. So I think it is changing. What will happen in the next 10 years, it's really difficult. I am afraid it's difficult to foresee. But probably also our colleagues in Italy will be more prepared to a more interconnected world.
From what you can tell, Maria Beatrice, would you say that Italy, the Italian legal market, and particularly the Italian legal market for arbitration, is facing the exact same challenges as any arbitration market around the world? Or do you think there are certain distinct features to the Italian market?
Well, I would say that the Italian international arbitration community is similar to the international community abroad, everywhere. So we still have maybe a different situation for what concerns the domestic arbitration. That might be slightly different. Also because you might know that we have a number which is not, of course, never, we have no figures for that, but we have a huge number of ad hoc arbitration in Italy at a domestic level. And instead of, moving towards institutional arbitration, maybe this is something that will change in the next year, also because the arbitral institutions are working very well and very much in the, in the same, in the flow of international institutions. Mm-hmm. So I think they will also share the same values, the same changes, and even the same problems, probably.
Mm-hmm. I see.
I would say on this, I couldn't agree more, since in my experience in national arbitration, I see that the tribunal tries to learn from the international case law and experience. So I cannot agree more on this.
Well, you can see, there's a very recent case I'm not going to mention or discuss here, but what has happened in that case, it is something which happened 20 years ago. Nowadays, I think we would have something different. So things would have been different. So without moving to that particular example, but I think that there is is a sort of flow of positivity.
I agree. It's good because it's a change also in the mentality of the national arbitrator. But this is only my point of view. Flavio.
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting you.
No problem. That's what we're here for. You have started your career, if I'm not mistaken, as secretary, and you have, secretary to tribunals in ad hoc arbitrations, I guess, in domestic and international arbitration. For me to understand, would that be the sort of the ordinary course, in the sense of you would be secretary first in domestic ad hoc arbitrations and then it might move to the international level, or not necessarily?
Well, actually, I started directly from the international arbitration.
Oh,
so
great.
I was very lucky. I was very lucky for that, because I was designated as secretary of the Arbitral Tribunal in some big cases, and I really was honored to be part of that, just to see, international arbitration from the inside. And that was a great experience. Of course, I think it is the same at a domestic level, and it could be the same, as you mentioned, being secretary of an arbitral tribunal at domestic level and then have an experience at international level. I think it's extremely important, because you could learn a lot of things from a position which is in the arbitration, but without many responsibilities. So you're not a real player. So it's a perfect point of view for studying arbitration from the inside.
What are those key features that you learned from, acting in your role as a secretary for your future work then to arbitrator?
Yeah, well, first of all, all different relationships within the arbitral tribunal, between the arbitral tribunal and the parties and the counsel, of course. So, it's first of all, you have a responsibility to keep things in order, to follow the procedure, to be attentive at what is moving during the hearing. For instance, hearings are extremely interesting, and you can see, how things move from what the one counsel says, a more aggressive counsel, and another counsel who reacts to the aggressive counterparty. So very, very instructive. I think it's very important. You start learning to see how the request for arbitration is written, because you can read the submissions of the parties, you can summarize the submissions of the parties, you can also maybe see how a PO1 is written, or terms of reference, in the past mainly terms of reference. You keep the correspondence among the arbitrators, and so you keep track of all the different passages. Extremely important.
If you were referring to the relationship among the arbitrators, how would you yourself describe it? I mean, particularly, what do you do when you disagree within a tribunal? Is it always compromise, or do you say, no, this is worth a dissenting opinion? Or do you say the dissenting opinion is a no-go?
Well, the dissenting opinion is an extreme solution. So I would say, I think you should try to find a better balance within the position. But still, sometimes it is necessary to have a dissenting. So there's no other way. So what happens? I've experienced in a couple of cases, and we had different positions, and in the end, also considering with even more attention the case, and so rereading the submissions of the parties and the text, all what has been what the expert have witnessed, and you can probably find a different perspective which could convince all arbitrators. And so, it is necessary, in my opinion, to try to find a common view, a common solution. Mm-hmm. But then if you cannot, well, dissenting is a dissenting.
And if we look at, like the relationship, if you want to call it, to counsel. How would you describe that? Or let's maybe be more direct. How does aggressiveness work for you when you act as arbitrator?
Well, you know very well that some colleagues are extremely aggressive. I mean, aggressiveness is part of their character, is part of their role. I mean, it seems that they cannot do but being aggressive. So, so it always makes me laugh a little bit, because I think there are different ways for, you know, approaching cases. And I mean, the first thing I think is not to be scared by the aggressiveness of a counsel. Realize that what he's saying is part of it's the position of the party, but no more than that. So try to, you know, to clean it up of all the aggressiveness and consider only the terms, the content of what is said.
Although I guess the content would be conveyed maybe a little bit more delicately and maybe more comprehensively if you would not have to polish it that way, right? I mean, I might lose some of the bits and pieces there and there.
This is true. This is true.
How is your own personal style of advocacy? Would you say your peers consider you as aggressive or not at all?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. So I'm not aggressive, and I'm always trying to, you know, to ground my position very well. And that's the, you know, the force I'm looking for when in my, you know, in my work and in advocacy. So I'm not an aggressive person, and I think that Matteo knows me enough. Not an aggressive person. I'm a bit determined, so if I have something clear in my mind, I will try to, you know, to fight for that until I hopefully succeed. But never in an aggressive way. So
I agree that I also think that to be clear and also ironic pays a lot against aggressive counterparty. So no.
I think it's an issue. It's a style. I mean, depends on how you are.
Oh, of course.
And if you are, I mean, you are acting both as arbitrator and as counsel. Do you like the combination, or is there one function that you prefer more, or what would you say?
Well, apart from the debated issue of double heading, which has raises different problems. Well, actually, what I like more in being the arbitrator is that I'm more autonomous. So in the interaction with other co-arbitrators. But what I like most in working as a counsel is the team. So I do appreciate very much working in a team. And I think this is a very good part of our work, very interesting. And so, I mean, they're different. They're different, but working ahead or being appointed as an arbitrator is also very important. You know, it gives you a lot of responsibility, and you have to really to get into the case as much as possible.
I have one last question, and then I will again give the floor to Matteo. But we will try to get to a new sort of topic, which is on your well, other roles that you have, and you have many, okay, as we understood, that you have, you know, being a secretary of ICC Italy, and you are you have a leading role in the Italian Association of Arbitration. You promote arbitration in Italy and abroad, basically. I personally have experienced, as you know, that AIA has become much more active this year and last year outside of Italy, which to me as a Swiss Italian was always a little bit strange that, you know, that even our Italian speaking part is not not as active as it could be, and that Italy would not, you know, like come in and probably have a more active exchange with Switzerland and on that end. But this is happening now. In your view, what can the other jurisdictions and arbitration hubs like Paris, Geneva, Zurich, Vienna, what can they learn from Italy? What do they have to learn from Italy when we talk about arbitration?
This is a very difficult question. Well, actually, as you said, in the Italian Association for Arbitration, just to give you a few hints, was created some more than 60 years ago. So it was a truly classic traditional association with members, and at first it was also an arbitral institution administering cases. The idea I had when I accepted to be appointed as Secretary General first of the AIA and then of the ICC Italy was, you know, an idea of promoting a new vision of these two institutions, which were kept for too long in you know, as in this comfort zone again of being institutions with members and doing their everyday work, but nothing more. So the idea was to change completely. It took a lot of time because I was designated in the Italian Association some 10 years ago. So it took me 10 years to reach what we have today. But I think it was a day-by-day work of construction. So this is something I think that is truly Italian. So we start from something which is not fully distinguished, which is something which is, you know, sort of in the middle of something. But then we insist, we keep on going, and we keep on, you know, changing a little bit day by day until we reach a new level. So this is typically Italian, I think. You might see that we are always like, you know, silent or middle level in many things, and then something, you know, it explodes, something changes abruptly, and it's something good. So this is an attitude, I think, of Italians, very, very Italian. I would say that we are less, maybe, it is something we should be proud of. And in a way, it's a characteristic of our country that we should really be proud of, instead of, you know, denying and complain about ourselves all the time. We can do things in a very good way, but it takes time, and, you know, continuously we have success.
Not radical, but steady.
Not radical.
Towards the goal.
Not radical.
Matteo, I hand over to you.
Thank you. So, since we talk about the positions of Maria Beatrice, in 2019, you founded your own law firm with Giacomo Roca Selgheta. So what were your feelings when you started such a challenging adventure?
Well, I was busy with the two institutions, but it was not enough, apparently. So I really, I was eager to go back to the private practice. And, you know, with Giacomo, we've been cooperating on different initiatives. Mainly, we are co-directors of the Certificate in International Commercial and Investment Arbitration at Roma 3. And today is our 8th edition. And maybe, you know, after a while, we started thinking of approaching the idea of joining forces. And this is what we really did. The project was built up little by little again. So we considered all the opportunities, because at first we decided, we also considered the possibility of, you know, joining a big law firm. But in the end, we made up our mind in creating the arbitration and litigation, and where our initials, so Deli and Rokas, also stay for dispute resolution. So it was that was the right idea. We said, okay, let's move from there.
Love it. I noticed that you set up your headquarters in Rome, but even if you have also an offices in Milan. So what is this relationship with Rome? It's for an international boutique to stay in Rome. It's a choice, no? It's a particular choice.
Yeah, it was a choice. We are based in, in our private life, we are based in Rome, and we decided to have something which was not, which was quite unusual in Rome, to have a boutique law firm working in international arbitration, international litigation in Rome. Of course, I was not born in Rome, and I mean, Rome is my city of choice. So what can I say? I'm used to go and travel. I've been traveling a lot in my life, but still, I mean, Rome is the center of my life. And so we wanted to build up something which was different, more original, instead of going to Milan, where you can have many other boutique law firms dealing with arbitration and litigation.
I'm with you, Maria Beatrice, and I think that maybe Rome in the next years could be a surprise, since now Italy is at the center of the Mediterranean. So maybe, no?
Yeah, that was the idea. Maybe we could have different opportunities.
Yes. Sadly, the time is against us. I'm so happy we had this opportunity to talk with Maria Beatrice. But talking about happiness, then I have a quote for you. Baudelaire said, there are as many types of beauty as there are ways of seeking happiness, where Camus, on his side, argued, only one thing is more tragic than pain, the life of a happy man. What makes you happy, Maria Beatrice?
Well, two important quotation. I actually I always refer to a quotation, but I don't know the author really. And it was about happiness. States that that the three essentials for happiness are something to do, something to love, and something to hope for. And I think I have a lot of things to do. I have a lot of people to love, and I have a lot of hope for the future, for all of us, for younger generation, for my daughter, for all of us. So I think the combination of the three makes me happy.
Thank you. Flavio.
Thank you very much, Maria Beatrice, for joining us today and for allowing us to get to know you a little bit better on a personal level and sharing some of your experiences and insights with us. To the audience listening and watching us, we hope you enjoyed the discussion with Maria Beatrice and that you will again tune in at the end of June for an interesting discussion with Dr. Habib Al-Mullah. He's a partner at Baker McKenzie in Dubai, and among many other things, he's also the chairman of the Dubai International Arbitration Center's Board of Trustees and chairman of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators UAE Committee. We will, of course, provide further information when, where, how, with whom, etc. Just stay tuned. And again, Maria Beatrice, thank you very much. Thank you, Matteo.